Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 8 and we will deliver our topics about teaching methods. So, as we know, in this subject we are directed to understand three main as subtopics. There are model, approach, and method. And we have discussed about two of that. Uh, there are model and approach, and finally we come into last discussion is about the teaching method. So at first, what is teaching method? So teaching method is the systematic way of doing something. It implies an orderly logical arrangement of steps. It is more procedural. It is more procedural. It is it is the plan that we follow when we are teaching. By applying a certain approach, we come up with procedure and practice for teaching our students, and this consists of procedure that we follow. We take our outline of action that we have to do. Then what we have to know is what types of method that teaching method provide. In here, teaching method divided into two subtopics. There are teacher-centered learning, and the second one is student-centered learning. So what is the main differences of two of that? The first is teacher-centered learning is a learning system where the teacher or lecturer become the center of teaching and learning activities. Meanwhile, student-centered learning is learning that places students at the center of learning activities. For more understanding about two of that, as the first speaker and our second speaker, we will explain the first subtopics is about teacher-centered learning, and and two of others will explain the second one is about student-centered learning. So let's jump to the main discussion that I will deliver is about what is teacher-centered learning. So a further discussion that I have explained the main differences in TCL. Teacher-centered learning is a learning system where the teacher or lecturer becomes the center of teaching. Becomes the center of teachings and learning activities, so that one-way communication occurs. Here, what the student learn is transfers. What the students learn is transferred quickly from the teacher to the students in the implementation. Taken to its more extreme interpretation, teachers are the main authority figure in this teacher-centered learning. Students are viewed as who passively receive knowledge from their teachers through lectures and direct instruction, with an goal of positive results from testing and assessment. In this style, teaching and assessment are viewed as two separate entities. Meanwhile, students' learning is measured through objectively scored tests and assessment. Then I will explain about the characteristic of the teacher-centered learning. There are four main characteristics that describe teacher-centered learning method. First is teacher who must be the center in teaching and learning activities. There are three main roles that teacher must play, namely the teacher as a planner, as a conveyor, and as an evaluator. The second characteristic is the students are placed as learning objects. In here, the students are considered as passive object in learning process who do not understand what must be understood, so that in the learning process students are required to understand everything the teacher says. The role of students is as recipients of information provided by the teacher. Types of knowledge and skills sometimes do not consider the need of students, but depart from the point of view that the teacher thinks is good and useful. The third characteristic is learning activities occur at a certain place and time. In here, for example, with strict scheduling, students only study when there is a class that has been designed in such a way as a place to learn. The existence of a predetermined place, often teaching occurs very formally. Students sit in rows and the teacher is in front of the class. Likewise, only in very tightly regulated times. For example, when learning times for one particular material has run out, students will immediately learn other materials according to predetermined schedule. The way of teaching is like separate parts, as if there is no connection between one subject matter and another. The fourth characteristic is the main purpose of teaching is mastery of the subject matter. So in here, the success of the teaching process is measured by how much students can master the subject matter delivered by the teacher. The subject matter itself is knowledge that comes from the subject matter delivered at school, while the subject itself is described in textbook, and then the contents of the textbook must be mastered by students. Sometimes students do not need to understand what is the main point of studying the material, because the criteria for success are determined by mastery of the subject matter. The evaluation tool used is usually a paper and pencil test that is carried out periodically. The next information I will deliver is about types of method. In here, there are 5 types of method that teacher-centered learning provided. For the first 2 methods, there are speech and expository method will deliver with me, and other 3 methods will be delivered with our second speaker, and she will explain to the advantage and disadvantage in TCL commonly. So let's jump to the first method. It is a speech method. So the speech methods can be interpreted as a way of presenting lesson through oral narrative or direct explanation to groups of students. As we know, until now, this method is often used by every teacher or instructor. This is not only due to certain consideration, but also the habitual factors for both teachers and students. Teachers are usually not satisfied with measuring in the learning management process by not doing lectures. Likewise, with students, they will learn when there is a teacher who provides subject matter through lectures, so that there are teachers who teach, which means there is a learning process, and no teachers mean there is no learning. Next, we will explain what the steps that need to implementing this speech method. There are 2 main steps that must be considered, namely preparation and implementation. The steps include, first is preparation phase. At this step, what must be done is first, formulate goals to be achieved. Second, determine the subjects of the material to be explored. Third is prepare tools. Second step is implementation phase. At these steps, there are three steps that must be taken. First is opening steps. The opening step in the speech method is a decisive step. The success of the lecture is most determined by this step. Second is presentation step. The presentation step is the step of delivering learning material by speaking. In order for quality lectures as a learning method, the teacher must keep students' attention so that they are focused on the learning material that is being delivered. Third is steps to end or close the lecture. The learning process must be closed with a summary of the main points of the subjects so that the subject matter that has been understood and mastered by the students doesn't fly back, and other create activities that follow students to remember the learning material is needed. Second method that I will explain is about expository method. So the expository method is a learning strategy that emphasizes the process of delivering material verbally from the teacher to students with the intention that students can master the subject matter optimally. Roy Killen or Invina Sanjaya named the expository method with the term direct learning strategy or direct instruction, that what we have discussed, because in this case students are not required to find the material as if the subject matter was finished, because the expository method emphasizes the storytelling process. It is often called the chalk and talk method. What we have to know here is expository learning is different from speech method. The differences between expository method and speech method is that in the teacher's dominance is reduced. In expository method, the teacher only provides information at certain times that are needed by the students. And last, I will explain in what the step that need to implementing this expository method. The expository learning steps are as follows. First is preparation. The preparation step relates to the preparation of students to receive lesson. The success of the implementing learning using an expository strategy really depends on this preparation step. Second is about presentation step. The presentation step is delivery of subject matter in accordance with the preparation that have been made. Third is correlation. The correlation step is a step to connect the subject matter with students' experience or with other things that allow students to capture the relationship in the knowledge structure that students already have. Four is concluding steps or summing up. The concluding step is a step to understand the essence of the subject matter that has been presented. And the last one is application. The next step is to show students' abilities after the learning process takes place. Application is very important because through this step, the teacher will be able to collect information about the mastery and understanding of the subject matter by students. The techniques that is usually done in this step is to make assignments that are relevant to the materials that has been presented and provide tests that are in accordance with the subject matter that has been presented. The teacher can also give assignment in the form of subjects or products according to the material. So that's all from me. We hope you enjoyed our video. Thank you.